Stone walls, green hills, and a price tag that makes you do a double take. That's what $150,000 gets you in two of Europe's most coveted countryside regions, and they couldn't feel more different from each other. I went through dozens of listings across rural Brittany and rural Tuscany to find the ones you could actually move into. Not projects dressed up in golden hour photography, not ruins with great bones, not listings where the word potential appears 4 times in the first paragraph. Solid properties at the time of this roundup that a real person could realistically live in. One of these 8 has a detail that quietly flips everything you think you know about which country wins at this budget. And it is not the one you're expecting. I'll get to it. But first, France. Brittany is the Atlantic edge of France, a peninsula that juts into the sea and has been doing its own thing, culturally and architecturally, for centuries. The stone here is granite, dark and sturdy, and the houses built from it have been standing since long before anyone thought to photograph them. The interior is green and rolling, the climate mild and wet, and the cost of living low even by French standards. Malkerhex, Côte d'Armor, Brittany, 127,000 euros, or about $146,000. And before I describe the house, I want you to picture the approach. A dead-end lane, completely quiet, no through traffic, 2 minutes by car from Malkerhex itself, which has shops, a medical center, pharmacies, and everyday services. The house sits in 980 square meters, about 10,550 square feet, of mature garden, flowering, with fruit trees, and a small wooden chalet tucked in the corner. The kind of thing that suggests someone has been caring for this place for a long time. Inside, it's 89 square meters, 958 square feet, across 2 floors. On the ground level, a large open-plan living room and kitchen stretching to 49 square meters, or 527 square feet. That's not a typo. Nearly half the house on 1 floor, plus a recent bathroom at 9 square meters, about 97 square feet, and a separate toilet. Upstairs, 3 proper bedrooms at 17 square meters, 12 square meters, and 9.5 square meters. That's 183, 129, and 102 square feet respectively, plummets, plus a corner office nook, 2 wood stoves, 1 in the living room and 1 in the kitchen. In a Breton winter, and I say this as someone who has spent time in Brittany in February, that is not a quirky lifestyle detail. That is the heating plan, and it works beautifully. Here's the honest thing though. The energy rating is an E, index 276. That's not disqualifying, but it's not something you walk past either. An E rating in France means you're going to feel it in your running costs, and depending on when you're buying relative to the 2025 rental restriction timelines, future resale to an investor could be complicated. If you're buying to live in it, the wood stoves do most of the work, but insulation improvements are probably a medium-term job rather than an immediate one. State that plainly, factor it in. And this house still represents extraordinary value because the garden is mature and already producing. The amenities are 2 minutes away rather than 40, and the asking price is $146,000. That combination genuinely is harder to find than it sounds. The next one feels like a completely different kind of find. This is a stone house in Maguire, also in Côte d'Armor, at 143,000 euros, about $164,000. And I'm going to lead with everything that's wrong with it because I think you should know before you fall for the photographs. The windows are single glazed. In Brittany, in a stone house, that is a genuine discomfort in winter, not a deal breaker, but a fact. The heating runs on oil, which in 2025 is an increasingly awkward conversation. And the septic tank, the listing says, plainly, work needed. That phrase, in a French real estate context, is doing a lot of heavy lifting. It means the fosse septique has been assessed and found non-conforming, which means there's a job waiting for you after you move in, and the bill for that job could range from a few thousand euros to significantly more depending on the terrain and what's already there. So now that you know all of that, here is what the house actually is. An authentic Breton stone farmhouse, no overlooking neighbors, genuinely private, surrounded by open fields, 4 comfortable bedrooms upstairs. The living area totals 85 square meters, 915 square feet, spread across a spacious kitchen, and a living room with an open fireplace. And that living room opens directly onto a private enclosed terrace with stone walls. Not a little platform outside the back door, a proper courtyard terrace, stone on 3 sides, looking out over nothing but green countryside. Property tax, 380 euros per year. And then there's the attic, a fully convertible attic reached by a second staircase, with a footprint large enough for a master suite, a home office, a playroom, whatever you want to do with it. The structure's there, the decision is yours. I'm genuinely not certain what a full attic conversion would involve in terms of cost. The listing doesn't price it, and I'm not going to invent a number. What I can say is that attic conversions in this part of Brittany are extremely common. Local builders know how to do them efficiently, and the structural framework already being in place is the most expensive part of the equation done. If you're seriously interested in this one, a local architect and a contractor's quote before he's signing anything is the right move. Now, step back. You've seen 2 Breton properties, and neither one is over $165,000. Both have mature gardens, both have 3 or more bedrooms, both sit in genuine countryside with private land. And here's what that actually means. At this price in rural Brittany, you are not making compromises on space or land. You are choosing what kind of project you want. That is a very different conversation from what most people expect when someone says affordable home in France. It reframes the whole game. And before we go further, let's talk about what daily life actually looks like from here, because a house without context is just a building. The nearest town with a full supermarket, pharmacy, and GP from either of these properties is Carhex Pluger, roughly 15 to 20 minutes by car. The nearest hospital with emergency services is also Carhex. Same distance, which for a rural location is honest rather than alarming. Coast access? You're looking at roughly 45 to 60 minutes to reach the North Brittany shoreline. Internet in Côte d'Armor is genuinely variable. Some communes have fiber, others are ADSL, and Starlink is a completely realistic fallback if you're working remotely and the listing doesn't confirm fiber. That is the first question I would ask before making an offer. Life here at its best looks like this. Coffee at the boulangerie in Carhex on Saturday morning, a wood fire going by 3 in the afternoon, and a garden that is already doing most of the work for you. Here's the thing nobody puts in the listing description, the fosse septique. Both properties sit on rural land almost certainly served by a private septic system rather than mains drainage. In France, a diagnostic assainissement or a septic inspection is required before sale. But conforming and recently compliant are not the same thing. A non-conforming system costs 5,000 to 15,000 euros to fix. Tip: ask your notaire for the full assainissement report or septic report. If it says travaux nécessaires, get a builder's quote before you sign. And this is exactly the kind of thing I want you to check before you fall in love with a house. That's why I created The Real Cost of Buying a Cheap House in Europe, a complete 180-page guide to help you understand what you're really paying before you make an offer. If you're serious about buying in Europe, this guide could save you thousands by helping you avoid the wrong property and the hidden costs most buyers miss. You can get it through the link in the description or just scan the QR code on screen. Don't buy the dream blind. Third property. Still in Brittany, still in Côte d'Armor. Saint-Gilles-les-Bois, 163,000 euros, $188,000. And this is the point where the French side of this comparison starts to feel almost unfair. 90 square meters, 969 square feet of living space, 4 spacious bedrooms, a pellet boiler described as recent, double-glazed windows throughout, electrical system completely redone, plumbing recent, shower room updated, insulation recent, and the roof was redone 15 years ago. In the context of rural Breton stone houses, that list of recent works is significant. And the land, 5,557 square meters, nearly 60,000 square feet, just over half a hectare. A field, essentially, for your personal use, landscaped and mature. There's also a 44 square meter hangar on the plot, 474 square feet, worth real money if you run a workshop, need equipment storage, or keep vehicles. According to the listing, what's left to do is install the kitchen you want and decorate to your taste. 3 kilometers to a village with a pharmacy, dentist, supermarket, and doctor. 12 minutes from Guingamp, a bus stop near the house. This is genuinely as close to move-in ready as rural Brittany gets at this price. New leader. Here's something worth sitting with before we cross into Italy. Up to this point, France has been dominant. More space, more land, more bedrooms per euro than almost anything comparable at this budget. Every property has been on clean rural land, close to actual services, with a real-life logic to it. France looks like the obvious answer. I want you to hold that feeling, because what Italy does next is not beat it on square footage. It beats it on something harder to quantify, and that changes the whole question. Fourth property. Plounevezel, Finistère, 189,000 euros, $219,000. 2 houses on a single plot of 4,000 square meters, roughly 43,000 square feet. The first building is 45 square meters. 484 square feet, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen and dining area on the ground floor, a pellet stove, and a wood stove for warmth. The second is 60 square meters, 646 square feet, with a larger upstairs bedroom and a kitchen lounge that, according to the listing, will need renovation work before it's fully functional. several outbuildings on the plot, plus a large hangar, all of it just a few minutes from car hex. The honest truth about this one is that it's a compound project, not a turnkey property. 2 buildings plus outbuildings requiring work is not a long weekend. It is a plan, a budget, and probably a year of your life. But if what you want is a gîte, alongside your own home, a workspace, a multi-generational setup, this is how you get that structure for under $220,000 in France. That's the deal, and it's a real one. Now, Italy. Let's actually go there. Tuscany needs no grand introduction, but the version most people picture is not the version we're looking at here. Forget the wine estates and manicured cypress alleys of the Chianti. Inland Tuscany, particularly the provinces of Arezzo, Lucca, and Massa Carrara, is rougher, quieter, and considerably more affordable. The architecture is stone and terracotta, built to last centuries, and the climate is warmer and drier than Brittany, with hot summers and mild winters at lower elevations. Arezzo Province, Tuscany, 128,000 euros, about $148,000. Arezzo itself is a solid working Tuscan city, less visited than Florence, more lived in than Siena, with a medieval center and a Friday antiques market that draws dealers from across Europe. The countryside around it is classic rolling Tuscany at a fraction of the price you'd pay closer to the tourist trail. And I want to be direct about what this property is before anything else. This is a conversion project. The building was originally a tobacco drying facility, which means it has a structure that is genuinely striking, high ceilings, characteristic agricultural bones, a form that doesn't look like any other house on your street, and it also means it is not yet a house in the legal sense. What it has going for it is specific and important. Water and electricity connections are already in place. The building stands on its own plot with full privacy from the neighboring house. A separate entrance with its own gate has already been prepared, and this is the detail. An expert technical assessment for conversion to residential use has already been completed and is available to the buyer. In Italy, obtaining that kind of planning certainty on a rural building is a process that can take months and significant money. The fact that it's done and documented changes the risk profile of this property substantially. This is not a move-in property, and I won't pretend otherwise, but it might be the most interesting creative canvas on this entire list. And at $148,000, including that paperwork, it is priced accordingly. Cortona, Arezzo, 130,000 euros, $150,000. Cortona is one of those Tuscan hilltop towns that earns its reputation. Medieval walls, panoramic views over the Val di Chiana, and a sense of permanence that makes you feel like the town has been waiting for you, rather than the other way around. Most restored property here starts well above $500,000. At 130,000 euros, you are not buying that, but you are buying access to it. At this price, what you're getting is a rustico requiring complete renovation. The structure is generous, currently divided into 3 separate residential units, set on approximately 2.5 hectares of flat agricultural land with views over Cortona and a double garage on the plot. The terrain is flat, which in Tuscany is genuinely unusual and makes any construction project significantly more manageable than on a hillside site. A full structural renovation of a property like this, done properly, with licensed geometry oversight and quality materials, will cost real money. 6 figures is not an overstatement, but the combination of 2.5 hectares of flat land, the Cortona backdrop, and 3 potential units at 130,000 euros simply doesn't exist anywhere else in this roundup. If you have renovation budget, patience, and a vision for what those 3 units could become, a main house, a rental cottage, a studio, this is the most ambitious play on the list. Malazzana, province of Lucca, 135,000 euros, $156,000. And now, something genuinely different. Malazzana sits in the Garfagnana, the mountain valley between the Apuan Alps and the Apennines, above Lucca, and it is a real, lived-in village, not a tourist destination dressed up for weekend visitors. The Garfagnana is chestnut forests, fast rivers, and stone villages that the tour buses haven't reached yet, and the architecture reflects it. Independent, compact, built from local stone with terracotta wherever you look. The property is an independent stone building, free on all 4 sides, meaning no shared walls, structurally assessed as suitable for residential use right now, with 90 square meters, 969 square feet of living space, terracotta floors, wooden beams and rafters on the ceiling, a cellar accessible from outside described as suitable for wine storage. On the ground floor, a kitchen, hallway, bathroom, staircase, and a second room currently used as a store with separate entrance that the listing suggests has potential for more creative use. On the first floor, reached by an external staircase with a small balcony, Already from here, you're looking out over the valley. A large open-plan living area with a fireplace and a bedroom off it. And the best part is, there's a barn, an 85 square meter, 915 square foot, stone barn, structurally sound, assessed as suitable for conversion to residential use, separated from the main house by a private drive. That's not a storage shed. That is a second dwelling in waiting, a guest annex, a rental income property on 400 square meters, 4,310 square feet of total land, with views over the Garfagnana Valley that the listing describes as very pleasing, which is understatement in the way that only Italian property listings manage to understate things. At 135,000 euros for the house and the barn together, this is the strongest value proposition on the Italian side of this comparison, and I'd argue of the entire video. Trasana, Massa, and Carrara province, 140,000 euros, $162,000. And this is the one. This is the property I planted at the beginning, the detail that changes how you see everything else. Trasana sits in the Lunigiana, the northernmost wedge of Tuscany, where the mountains come down close, and the stone villages have been there since before anyone was counting. This is not the Tuscany of postcards. It's cooler, more dramatic, less visited, and architecturally distinct. Tall stone houses, tight medieval lanes, and a quietness that feels earned rather than manufactured. This particular house is built into the hillside at 340 meters with a terrace and 284 square meters, 3,060 square feet, of private land. 3 floors. Ground floor has an entrance hall, a pantry, and 3 cellars. First floor, the main living level, has a hall, a living room with fireplace, a double bedroom, and a terrace. Second floor, a kitchen with a second fireplace, another double bedroom, and a bathroom. 2 fireplaces. A terrace looking out over the Lunigiana Hills, walking distance to the village, and it's not a renovation, it is a house that you can move into at 140,000 euros. That is the detail, not the price, not the square footage, not the number of fireplaces. Though 2 fireplaces in a Tuscan stone village house at this price is genuinely something. Not the terrace, not the cellar, not the medieval lane outside the front door. The detail is that this is the only property on the Italian side of this comparison that resolves cleanly. No conversion project, no complete renovation, no waiting. You arrive, you unpack, and you have dinner on a terrace with a hillside view the same week. And that reframes everything, because the whole time France was building its case on move-in readiness and value per square meter, Italy was waiting for this moment to offer you the same thing in a completely different landscape at the same price. So where does all of this leave you? Best option for remote workers who need services and reliable daily logistics. Saint-Gilles-les-Bois. Move-in ready. Recent systems. Half a hectare of land. 12 minutes from Guingamp. Best for the Tuscany dream on a strict budget. Molizzana, where the stone house is livable now and the barn is your next chapter. Best ambitious project with maximum upside. Cortona, for the buyer who has renovation budget and doesn't need to move in next year. Best for moving straight in without a project overhead. Trasana, the only house on this list where the answer to when can I live here is immediately. The honest verdict, said the way I'd say it over coffee. France gives you more for your money on paper. Italy gives you more of a feeling of being somewhere. If you're optimizing for square footage, land, and practicality, Brittany wins. If you're optimizing for the sense that the house has a history and the view has earned it, Tuscany closes the gap faster than the numbers suggest. One question for the comments, and I mean this as a genuine poll. If you had $150,000 today and had to choose, are you in Brittany or are you in Tuscany? No hedging, just one. I'll read every answer. And if this kind of real, unfiltered property hunting is what you're looking for, no fabricated prices, no dream selling, just honest curation, subscribing to this channel is the best way to make sure you don't miss the next one.